people just asking questions. Wait a minute, how did you have 700 people say yes to a $97 thing, right? And I'm just trying to sell one of those, or I'm just trying to get one client or a thing. How do you do it 700 times over? So when I first started, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have coaches. I didn't have mentors. Honestly, at that point, I didn't attend a lot of events. So I didn't have a lot of exposure to what worked, what didn't work for me. And so when I first started, I over delivered. Okay. And I actually, in hindsight, actually really appreciate that this is how it played out for me. But I had a slow burn into what I would consider a successful, a stage talk. Okay. You want to talk about a big flop? I've never really talked about this. We can go there if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm about to blow. I'm Tupac with the nouns and Biggie with the flow. Big boy with the style and Andre with the fro.
Michael, welcome to the show. For those who aren't familiar with you, give us a rundown. Who are you? What do you do? And why did you start the High Ticket Accelerator?
Yeah, great question. I consider myself a regular dude. Okay. If I have to sum it up in one short, and sweet title, just a regular person. I'm big on personal development, professional development, relationships, just pushing into our greatest potential. And I started High Ticket Accelerator just because I saw a couple of things. I saw a lot of amazing coaches, entrepreneurs, and people that wanted to serve more people, make more money, do their thing. But they were wearing all the hats themselves, and they were trying to also build every pillar of their business, from marketing to sales to fulfillment for whatever they were doing. And that sales piece, I just kind of grew up in it and I understand it. It's my language. And so I was like, hey, let me build my own offer to just take that off the plate of all these amazing people, let them do, what they do best, better. So that's kind of where we started.
I love that. At about what level would you say that your clients and everything kind of start needing the sales teams?
Yeah, we have kind of three tiers that we look at. One would be less than 100,000 a month. Okay. And that's a pretty broad stroke, but somebody that already is growing and looking for help is exactly the kind of, not just demographic, but the psychographic of who we can actually start to work with, because we can actually do some coaching and some support even before we start building their sales systems, their sales teams. And then 100K plus, 100K to $1 million a month is our sweet spot, because they know that they've got something awesome. They know that they need to grow, but they know that they can't do it all. There's some sticking points inside of that range, as you've seen, I'm sure, where we can really get in and have the biggest impact. And then anybody $1 million or more, we start looking at more of a consulting kind of relationship at that point.
Love it. No, I love that. You've had kind of quite the journey. I know if I did my research right, there was homelessness, F-it phase, and now closing millions in high ticket sales. Like, what was that turning point that made you kind of shift gears and go all in?
Man, thanks for doing the research. And now you're getting me in the feels. Okay, let's go there. So the turning point for me was that I found myself, that term homelessness, I found myself sleeping in my car in the dead of winter here in Utah, which is rough as it is. But honestly, that wasn't the turning point. That didn't do it for me. At that point, I could still hide away. Nobody had to know what was going on in my personal bubble. I was just kind of in my own little world, shielding everybody else out. And the turning point, honestly, was the next weekend, where it was supposed to be my weekend with my daughter, and I was living in my freaking car, right? And so I didn't have a place to take her, and I had to break the news to her that, I was trying to figure some things out and, tried to make it really fluffy sounding, but she kind of hit me in the face with some hard truths. Even as a 2-year-old little girl, she literally looked me in the face and just adding the ones and zeros. She was like, well, just make more money. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And so I laughed. We had a great night. I took her to her mama's, and that weekend I started the first, incarnation, I suppose, of what is now my business. And that was 9-10 years ago. But yeah, that moment I was like, okay, I've been seen by my daughter. She spoke some life into me, some truth. And so if I can create shitty outcomes like this, maybe I can create something awesome. And so I just
Love
kind of
that.
turned the leaf and started pushing for it.
I love that. I think like one of the things that I live by is it doesn't matter how dark your past is, your future can always be bright, but it always takes that first step in order
Yeah.
to like make that happen. And, you know, sometimes we see ourselves in these mirror moments, and the mirror we're looking at is our kids in this point. My daughter's 2 years old, so I couldn't even imagine how that would feel kind of hearing that from her.
Yeah.
Like I know your first course that you tried to launch, it didn't go as well as you hoped it would.
You
Can you
could say
kind of
that.
like let us know a little bit about like kind of what happened there? What do you think went wrong, and how you turned that around with the next course that you launched?
Yeah. Okay. So you just want to talk about all the dirt. Let's do it, man. I love this. Yeah. So the reason I launched my first course was because, stemming from this turning point, going from homeless to starting to figure some things out, putting together my offer, trying to help some people out. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm really great at putting together content in a sequential order, something that would actually help some people. So why don't I just put my own course together? And so I did. I built the thing. It was beautiful. It had a lot of amazing content and information. And then I launched it. I just threw it out to the world. I was like, hey, everybody, I got this thing. It's dope. You should check it out. But nobody checked it out. Like literally it sold $0. And so I put all this time, effort, energy, built the thing. And I think you're probably seeing where I'm going with this. I didn't check in with like my audience. I didn't ask them what they felt they needed and what they wanted and what they expected from me specifically. How do they view me as an expert? What do they see my value that, add to their business? And I didn't do that. I kind of skipped that check-in period. And so the next round, I said, okay, let me ask the audience, so to speak. I did. They wanted the content. They wanted the training, especially the people that weren't ready to work in my first offer yet, kind of build them up a little bit with the course. And I just got all that feedback. I built the course based off of that. I launched the next, and we sold 700 copies of that course, or 700 seats to that course. Nice. In the first year, which at the time was life-changing for me. It was a total of $70K that I'd collected that year, which, going from homeless to having a course that was somewhat successful for me at the time was huge. And that actually snowballed into quite a few other really amazing aspects of my life and my business. People just asking questions. Wait a minute, how did you have 700 people say yes to a $97 thing, right? And I'm just trying to sell one of those, or I'm just trying to get one client or a thing. How do you do it 700 times over? So yeah, the conversation started to get bigger and wider. And that's where that sales world, that middle ground between marketing and shipping your product or fulfilling on your offer started to become really apparent for me.
Love that. No, that's huge. I think that's one thing a lot of people miss is doing the research. I know I believe it was Stephen Larson. I don't know if you know who that is. Right-hand man, not Tony Robbins, right-hand man, Russell Brunson.
Yeah.
Built over 300 funnels, built his first course, launched it, no sales. And like, I think because we get so into doing what we're doing, even like you were brand new, but you've kind of done similar stuff leading up to that we just miss that most crucial step. And that's asking the market what they actually want.
So simple. So simple. In hindsight's 2020, right? We see it all and we're like, oh yeah, of course I should have done that. But that's just the real story. I think, I've spoken to a fair number of people where we just start talking about the real stuff of life, business, entrepreneurship, whatever we're into. And I find that the more real we can get inside of that conversation, the better. Like I've met too many people that think they start their business and they're going to do $1 million their first year. Okay, well, cool, great thought, maybe possible. If with the right pieces and the right guidance and the right support and all the right pieces. But at the same time, is that the expectation? I don't know, right? Just clearing the air and getting real about what's possible and how to get there. That's where it changes the game. That's where we see, the most result.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing is like you actually took it as a learning lesson and you figured out what that one missing piece is, which a lot of people would have given up after that first failure and would have just been like, you know, this ain't for me.
Yeah.
And you kind of turned that on its head and went the complete opposite direction and like took that step back, looked at it from a bird's eye view and really figured out where you kind of missed the mark on that, which is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, let's touch into that for a second. You know, I appreciate the quote, you know, essentially that success never quits, right? You only fail when you quit, things like that. And I actually don't necessarily full-time believe that. I don't apply that as a given for every person or situation. In fact, a lot of successful people I know have quit a lot of things, but very intentionally when they see the end of the road and it doesn't match up to their desired outcome, right? We pivot a lot. We stop a lot of things. My first business isn't the same business as what I'm doing now. My first job isn't what I'm doing now, right? We quit a lot of things. And so for me, success isn't about quitting or not quitting. It's really about, you know, taking a look at what's working, what's not working. And you just don't stop. Success doesn't stop. We're going to pivot. We're going to find what didn't work, what worked well. And I think successful people, they just have a knack for being open to those things. Because you're right. I could have said, I could have made that a very big story for myself. See, this is why I can't win. This is why, you know, my childhood trauma story and my other belief system comes in, and I could shit on myself for having a goose egg. But at my core, I do have that belief. I am a successful person. I'm here for a reason. There's success in my future at all times. And so if that's true, I don't stop when it gets hard. I don't need to worry about any of those things. I'm going to figure it out. So not always easy to do in practice, you know, in the game, I should say. But that's the core belief. The little tiny seed is planted in the back of my brain. And it's definitely carried through.
I love that. There's actually a book that I kind of go back to and listen to every once in a while. And it's, what is it? It's about winning the war on your mind. I think that's the name of it. Yeah. Winning the war in your mind. And he talks about like, there's a lot of biblical principles and everything in that book. And it just kind of brings you through different pieces of scripture that kind of change the way that you think about yourself. Because like you said, whatever you're thinking about is going to kind of manifest. And if you think you're not good enough, then you're going to find opportunities to not be good enough.
Absolutely. We'll make it real. We're strong. We're powerful beings. We'll create whatever is going on up here. Whatever that 100%. Tape looks like, we'll get more of that for sure.
100%.
Yeah. That's why I keep a picture of like this chiseled, like Roman god of a man in my head with my face on it. It's kind of like AI. Like I've put my face on it. I'm going to get there. It's just a matter of time. That's it. I'm just going to chisel away one slice of pizza at a time. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I have like a vision board per se on my journal that I created. Had it printed from Canva and stuff like that. So I think that's huge, being able to actually visualize. Another great book is Psycho-Cybernetics. Not sure if you've read that.
I have that,
but huge when it comes to personal development.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the environment that you're in, I mean, that's huge. So that's why visuals are important. Like how I have my office setup is intentional, as intentional as it can be. I have the things that I use, which feels very resourced for me. Like I feel like I'm ready to go at all times. Like you could have hit me up yesterday knowing that we were going to shoot this episode today and said, hey, you got to be on in 5 minutes. I'd be like, cool, ready to go. I got what I need. But this environment is ready for me to come in and do what I need to do. Years past, that wasn't the case. I didn't have the vision. I didn't know what I needed. And so anything kind of worked. I kind of had a okay little setup and it was like, whatever. I didn't have this microphone. So I had, echoey audio. I didn't know any better. I was just like, yeah, this is good. I'm on a podcast. Cool. Right. But now I have the vision. I know exactly how I want to show up here with you. You got a killer show, right? I watched all the episodes now. And And so I know what level you're playing at. And if I show up less than that, well, we don't become bros.
Yeah.
We don't become besties from here. We don't have that Michael to Michael, that Eminem connection. Other people look at me and say, I don't know if this guy's a real expert. So it gets real. It gets real into that. So we can actually create our outcomes just by keeping that vision 100%.
No, I love that. That's just a great perspective for sure. I know, like, you've been on, what is it, 250 stages and then 300 podcasts?
Yeah, over 300 podcasts for sure. 200 technically 226 stages, but who's counting? Yeah.
Like, tell me about that. Like, what's it like preparing for one of those? Like, from the first one that you did to the ones that you've done most recently, how has your ability to kind of like show up and lead the stage?
That is a perfect question. Because it would be like, if I were a doctor, this would be malpractice if I told you how I prepare now, right? Because it's definitely not how I should have or would have prepared when I was first getting on stage. So I love that question. What's the difference? So when I first started, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have coaches. I didn't have mentors. Honestly, at that point, I didn't attend a lot of events. So I didn't have a lot of exposure to what worked, what didn't work for me. And so when I first started, I over delivered. Okay. And I actually, in hindsight, actually really appreciate that this is how it played out for me. But I had a slow burn into what I would consider a successful, a stage talk. Okay. My first 50 times on stage, I over delivered. And I think we all know where I'm going to go and take this conversation. When we over deliver, whether it's on stage or even a sales call, and we just give the audience exactly what they need, and they have the roadmap to go home and work on. Well, they don't also hire you. So if you have an offer, which I did, or I thought I did at the time, they don't usually say, "Oh my gosh, I need to work with this dude." Okay, so I was over indulging the audience with information. No need for my offer. Okay, so it was a lot of charity work. It was a lot of me, developing my chops, so to speak, and getting exposed to other speakers to see what they were doing and what I liked, what I didn't like. So about 50 times in, I was like, I really want to serve some people. I really want to get my hands dirty, do some work. So I retooled that so that I could give the not the 30,000 foot view, but like the 10,000 foot view, get granular enough where they had some takeaway, the audience had some takeaway, some insights, some realness into that. And the 10-foot view, where we're face to face, is my offer, right? So if all of this made sense and you loved what I was talking about and you want to get your hands dirty and build some cool stuff together, well, cool. That's what my offer's for. But if all of this was great and this doesn't make sense for you, you don't like that, you don't like me, whatever the thing is, cool. You still got a ton of value. And I added, hopefully, a tremendous amount of value to whoever's putting on that event. And so the way I prepared then was very different. So when we started looking at, let's say 226 was just a couple months ago, 5,300, 5,400 people in attendance, my preparation time is very different. I know exactly what that talk looks like, what it feels like. All the pretty stuff, the slides and the branding, all that stuff is done. And I can just go up there and really hammer the points that I need to. The way that I connect also is a little different. I attend the entire event. I'm not the speaker that just flies in, does my hour, and then leaves. I'm there from day one or earlier. I'm connecting with the audience. I'm shaking hands. I'm literally networking. I'm making my own rounds, so to speak. But I'm also taking note of who's in the audience, where they're at in their business or their life or whatever the case might be, so I can really hammer in and make it relevant for that particular group. Not just for sales, not just because it's a technique, not just because it sounds cool. It's because it's for my own betterment. I love community. Yeah. I love connecting. And I want to make sure that my time on stage is not for naught, right? I want to make sure I'm dialed on that audience. They're going to leave saying, that dude gets it, right?
That's huge.
Yeah. And if nothing else, they will listen to the words that much deeper. They'll take notes, they'll make notes, they'll do something with it, whether they hire me or not.
Yeah.
So it's for efficacy at that point. And sure, there's business that happens on the backside of that too.
So you said around 50. I think it was 5 years ago you did a TEDx talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it around that time when you were kind of
just
learning?
before? Yeah, just before. Oh my gosh. You want to talk about a big flop? I've never really talked about this. We can go there if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. My TEDx talk. Most people would say, wow, that's amazing. Big deal. So cool. And it is. I think it is actually really cool. Also, the biggest flop I've ever had on a stage in my entire life.
Really?
Terrible. And I can only take accountability. So quick story, but I was actually, and this is a huge honor, I was actually invited to do this TEDx talk. You usually have to apply, and you're applying to many of them. But the local TEDx organizer, I guess, was connected somehow, or somebody passed my name on. She invited me to come do this TEDx. I was beyond honored. And so I was like, okay, I got to step my game up. This is that level up opportunity. And I'm a drummer. Okay. I'm a longtime drummer, amateur beatboxer. And so I was like, you know what? I have this talk, this idea, where I compare life to learning how to play the drums and what it takes to be a great drummer and some of the lessons that I can take into life. And I was really jazzed about this. She loved the idea. And in the talk, I was actually going to bring a little looping machine and do some layering of different drum patterns so that I could illustrate that, hey, you know, there might be this one thing going on in your life and you don't know what it's for or what the context is or why it exists. But in context with stuff that we could possibly never see coming for us, it comes together in this really cool rhythm of life, business, whatever. Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds cool, Michael. Sounds great.
It does sound good. Like, it really does.
I appreciate it. I wish that's how the talk went. So I show up the morning of, I'm jacked. I'm like, I want to rock this TEDx talk. Like, the experience was really cool leading up to it, meeting the other speakers. They're incredible. Some of them are my good friends to this day. I was like, and still, I want to be the best talk of the day. Head and shoulders above the rest. That was my mindset going in. And then I realized that the tech setup would not allow for me to have this looping pedal, which is the key component for me to accomplish what I set out to do. And so I'm racking my brain. I had 20 minutes to talk with the AV team and figure out if there's any way to make it happen. There was no way to make it happen with the setup that they had. And so I'm now freaking out. And I'm sitting in the audience. Luckily, I was going to speak after lunch because the way that they do it, it's just speaker after speaker after speaker. I think there's like 20, 25 speakers. Break it up with a little lunch. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I got to rewrite my talk. I got to figure something else out. And so I do. I rewrite the talk while I'm sitting there so I can kind of massage and get around this one glaring, missing piece of the puzzle. And I'm like, okay, I think I did. I feel really good about this. It takes a very different direction, but this could work. Well, faux pas on my side, I did not talk about this change with the organizer and the rest of the team. And so when she gets up to do her introduction, she introduces my talk as my former talk. And I had a very different talk, same theme, different direction. So now here I am, put yourself in my shoes where I'm like, oh shit. She just introduced my original talk, telling everyone that there was going to be some beatboxing involved, which now there wasn't in my second talk. And now now this is improv is what's happening. I'm like, okay, all right. Well, so I started my original talk, and about halfway through, I massaged it into the back half of my other talk. I still did a beatbox in the TEDx talk. It was terrible. I look back at it as like a mark of shame and a deep, deep reminder of, like, number one, be prepared and over-prepared, and 3, communicate. If something changes, make sure I'm over-communicative with all parties involved. So I don't know if there's any takeaways for the audience here, but man, what a cool opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, you started it off strong. I think the model joke and how beautiful the audience was definitely, it got people to laugh. So, I mean,
I appreciate that.
That's a
I,
plus.
yeah, that was my nerves is what that was. That was me trying to buy some time to figure out how on earth I was going to blend these two talks together to make it make sense. So I appreciate that. But yeah, since that time, over prepared. I have backups for the backups. I communicate with everyone involved, production, AV, like camera operators. I just connect with everyone, making sure there's no question everybody's on the same page, because you don't always get a TEDx talk, right? And for me, I assume that's my only one, and I don't love the representation from that. So
I mean,
that's the
I
story.
think the big lesson there is like, even when stuff can go wrong, there's still stuff you can learn from it and make sure it never happens again.
100%.
Kind of like what we were talking about a little bit ago with everything there.
You think I'm going to let a great opportunity like that slip through my fingers again? No way. Not going to happen.
So I kind of want to transition into, like, you've helped your clients, I believe it is, close nearly $35 million in high ticket deals. What's the biggest mistake that closers and coaches make when trying to sell premium offers?
Ooh, the biggest mistake. Honestly, I'd actually put it down to lack of training. I think I know a lot of amazing coaches, professionals, closers, and once they hit a stride, they sometimes give up on the training side. Because hey, I've done it. I hit a record. I had my biggest month, my whatever the thing is, and that's all well and good, but growth demands different inputs. What gets us here doesn't get us there. And oftentimes, if we just rest on our laurels or on whatever we've done in the past, well, the edges get a little dull, right? What we were doing on that same call actually starts to degrade over time. We're not putting in that kind of effort. And I see it all the time. I've seen some amazing coaches that are selling their own offer, or closers that are on an offer, and just that little, over time, you can look at call recordings and see the difference. But day to day, you don't quite feel it, right? We get a little too confident. We go in, we miss some steps, we take things out of order, you name it, and before you know it, you've derailed. So yeah, just consistent training. It doesn't have to be constant all day, every day, but I'm a big proponent on sharpening the iron. Like, I still do role plays myself. I have a coach that I do the rounds with. So if we're not really training for success, we shouldn't also expect it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I know a lot of people think that high ticket sales is just about being a great closer. But I know you emphasize it's about brand, offer, lead flow, and team.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through why each of these pillars is critical?
100%. And let's really, that is the order. BOLT, the BOLT approach as we have it, is that order in construction and what we're actually building with some of our clients. But if we look at it reverse, team, okay, if your team's going to succeed, what do they need? Right? They need the tools or the technology, but they also need leads to close. They also need a killer offer that's bringing in the right leads to then close. We need a very clear cutting brand with this that holds the offer, that drives the leads so that we can close. And so I would like to stick to my lane. We don't do ads. We don't do social media marketing. We don't do funnel build outs. Usually we're taking it from marketing into the sales system, which for us is the CRM, the calendar, and the closers. Essentially, that's what we want to kind of keep our hands on, right? But without a brand, and I don't necessarily mean branding, like the visual branding, but that brand. What are we all about? Who do we serve? How do we do it? Right? What outcomes do we see? All of the answers to some of the objections that we get could be answered from the brand and or the offer itself. So when we build those things intentionally, we should be able to drive and manage these leads exceptionally well. There should be no guess as to where they're at in their journey before they jump on a call with us, so that it is a true closing call and it's not a sales call, right? Two different worlds. and very similar in some benefit from either or both. But we like to focus on the closing side so that everything is aligned. By the time you hop on the call, you already know what you need to know. And this call is literally for closing the question, are we going to work together? And if so, how? That's it. So the closing skill is important. Absolutely. Because you need to navigate that conversation, but that brand needs to be 10 out of 10. The offer needs to be absolutely stacked. Those leads need to then align with what, those first two pillars, so that we can actually have a crack at closing something. So if there's a breakdown in really the lagging indicators, your closing percent, show up rate, some of the typical KPIs that we're looking at, if there's a dip in any of those numbers, if there's a weak spot, it's usually reverse engineered into one of those three previous pillars. So that's exactly how we look at it. And we get very surgical with that, so that, by the time we're building your closing team, I'm pulling from my audience or my community of 3,600 closers that we have to choose from. They trust me. And if I'm going to put them into a team on your offer, we've got to make sure that they're coming into a mansion of a sales system, not, a shack in the woods that we just put up because we thought this might be a good idea. And we got a leaky roof and no foundation. We got to build from the ground up. So that's kind of how we look at it, the Bolt approach.
No, I love that. That's very simple, which kind of brings me to the next question is, you talk a lot about simplifying the sales process. How do you break it down for someone who's really struggling to close high ticket deals?
Yes, let's get into this. So somebody's struggling. There's two components of this. One is the process and the other is the person. So if there's context, like let's say, for example, you are a closer on a team with multiple closers, or you are a coach that is using a process that other coaches like you are using, and your results don't mirror your context, your circle, okay, that is a signifier that there's something here. Okay, it's usually a person. There could be, and I'm not the mindset expert, but it's usually something revolving around belief systems. It could be training for sure. And really there's some stuff that we need to look at as a human. How are we showing up to these calls? Because you can say the words, you can read a script, right? But there's nothing you're going to do if you're not really showing up for success. Okay. So outside of the person, if we just look at the process, I love a simple process. And I love being really lethal clear if I'm the one on leading a closing call. Say, all right, John, awesome. Welcome to the call. I depending on their personality type, sometimes I get very just clear, concise, direct. Hey, hope you're okay with this. Probably not going to do a ton of small talk. We only got 45 minutes today, but I did take a look at your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, and I noticed you're in Chicago. Super cool. That's my hometown. So I can already tell we're going to have a really great conversation here. So here's how this typically works. Process, agenda. And we're going to start off by looking at and picking apart your business right now, your life, your health, your relationship, your whatever we're doing. Cool. I want to start with this very specific question. What is this? Whatever the question is, whatever the most important thing is. So how simple? We're not over talking. We're not using NLP tricks. We're not having to add all this stuff to it. Go to the baseline. Have a conversation with somebody, understand what the problem is. And if your solution solves the problem, tell them. Say, hey, I'm gonna make you an offer. Absolutely. What we have is exactly what you need. And here's how it works. Yeah. Here's why I say that. Let me just bridge the gap here. Sound good? Yeah, cool. It can be that simple. So it's either people or process. If you're the odd duck out in your circle, it's probably you. If your circle is not doing well, it's usually the process. So you have some pretty simple ways of looking at how to improve.
No, I love that. That's huge. And it's super simple. For those that are they get on the call, they're really scared to kind of ask those hard questions. Do you kind of fix that during role play, or what does that kind of look like when somebody comes into your program?
Love it. So let's say, for example, because we do have an offer for closers and coaches that are closing their own offer. It's more of a course. And so with that being said, we want to look at this in reverse. Okay. So there's a reason why we kick things off with understanding exactly what they're doing in the closing seat. Why are you there? What's the big purpose of this? Like, you could be doing any job. Why this? Why have a high ticket conversation? Why be a closer, whether you're a coach or a closer? And so for us, it becomes really important to harken back to what we're really going for. And we start looking at like life goals. We start looking at and really aim smarting, as we call it, to break down exactly what we want, why we want it, and how we're going to get there. Because I don't know, I don't care who you are. If you have any goal, it's tied to money, like 99% of the time. So if you want to do vacations at once a month or once a quarter or whatever, okay, well, it costs some dollars. And in our case, we know exactly how much, because we know exactly what vacation and exactly which dates and which flights we're taking and which resort we're staying at and which excursions we're taking, to the point where we know it's going to be $8,700.14. All right. So that's 3 months away. So how do we create that? Through sitting in the closing seat or through, whatever the case might be. So I'm going to pick that piece out first to understand when we start talking about asking the hard questions and digging in, there's two components. Well, number one, the easy one, is the carrot on the string of, do you want what you said you wanted? Okay. That's an easy one. And if the answer is yes, cool. Let's do the process. The process says, hey, you said you were, at 100K in revenue every year for the last 5 years. It hasn't really changed. The amount of effort has gone up, and but yet no outcome is different. Why is that? The ads aren't scaling like we want, and the whatever. Okay, gotcha. So what have you done differently? Or you just keep trying to do the same thing? Yeah, we're trying to figure it out. Okay, well, help me understand why. Why would we do that? Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know any other way. Oh, interesting. Have you thought about hiring professionals like us to solve that? Yeah, I thought about it. I mean, that's kind of why I'm here. But honestly, I just wanted to get some information. I want to see what you guys do. Okay, you just wanted some information? Okay, well, help me understand here, John. This sounds like a huge issue. You booked a call with me to just get some information. I don't know if that's accurate. Don't we want a different outcome? You said you wanted 500K over the next 12 months, but you just want some information? Or did you actually want to potentially engage with us if we're like the right fit for you? Yeah, I guess that's what I mean. Okay. Are you sure? What do you mean? I guess maybe I'm confused. Right now, it's just we're having a frank conversation.
Yeah,
it's pretty simple. And in the back of my head, I'm like, hell yeah, vacation time. I'm not just gonna sell this dude. It's gonna be the best fit, or it's a no. But I got to figure that out immediately.
love that.
Right. So the hard questions don't become hard. You can follow a process, cool, but I want my closers like engaged. I want them owning that conversation, leading that conversation as best they can. So asking those hard questions it's not as hard when you understand how it's going to affect this person's potential business or life, and how it affects yours too. Hitting that vacation or getting the surgery or doing the thing or whatever the thing is that's really important for you.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that it's just a simple way to put it, which I feel like a lot of the things that you do seems to be very, very simple, systematized.
Not complex.
Comes to the actual sales process or sales, actual being on the closing call, do you have them follow a script, or do you just kind of have a framework that just kind of says, okay, go from here to here, but not really have it be total script, a full script?
Yeah, both actually. So I like a framework because that means I get to, I can follow the flow, the outline that works, but it gives me some room to dialogue, to connect with a human. That's how I operate. Some people need a script. This is what I say when I jump on the call. This is the question that I ask next. And this is how I break down the agenda. And this is how I make sure that I have the decision maker right there on the call. If there's anybody else, let's get them here. This is how I do time check to make sure they have 60 full minutes. And this is how we go into pre-framing the decision on the call. And this is literally word for word. So some people operate better from that, where they'll drill it's literally daily, just making sure that word for word they know exactly what to say. So I don't have there's no hard and fast with that. Whatever the closer or the coach or whoever's in the closing seat needs is the answer.
Love it. Does it, like, if they are doing a script, does the script usually kind of stay the same besides the niche and questions that they're asking? Or like, how does your closing process and everything go from when somebody comes on a call to like when you're actually closing the deal?
Yeah. So if we're going to build that out, some of our clients come to us, they already have the process down. They know what works. They've tried a lot of different variations, a 1 call, a 2 call, follow-up sequence, whatever the details. But if we were to build that, it's all based on data, right? So we would actually have an onslaught of different call structures that we would go through. 1 call close, 2 call close, visual presentation like a slide deck or not. Certain aspects of the actual script would change or the framework would change. So there's a lot to dig into with that, but there's I don't know, half a dozen ways that are tried and true. They'll work in any industry, any niche, as long as it's a higher ticket product, 3K at least, 3K to 100K. 6 different approaches would work.
Nice. No, that's huge. For like,
simple.
Yeah, super simple.
Well, like, here's the thing. Like, I'm going to call like 900 million people out. The complexity that most people talk about, gurus, experts, whatever, it either one strokes their own ego so that people think that they're super, super smart, or they're just selling you something and they need it to feel complex so that you buy it, because otherwise you're not going to do all that.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is. And so if you're actually really good at what you do, I think I'm fairly decent at what I do. I can speak about it in plain English. When I jump on with a client, it's usually, or a potential client, it's a 20 to 30 minute conversation. We've pinpointed exactly what they need. Can I fill that gap? Can I serve them? Yes. If so, how? Very straightforward, very simple. And we have these kinds of outcomes. Do you like that? Cool. That's it. I don't have to trick you to death. I don't have to overcomplexify. I think I just made up that word to illustrate the point. I don't have to do that. It's just simple. Let's just have fun with it. We're growing business. We're doing cool things. Let's have fun with it. It doesn't have to be that. It's not that complex. It really isn't.
I think fun is like, it's a huge factor, especially when it comes to sustaining what you're doing for the long term. I know, kind of reflecting back at where I was 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I was like out of a divorce. I was having so much fun in my life. I kind of had one of those F it moments in my life, and I ended up drinking a lot, just partying all the time and just having all this fun, and everything was going great. And then I'd say a year before that, when I was like headed into the divorce and relationship was bad, my business was literally nowhere. I just had like a hobby that I was using all my savings to fund, and all of this stuff was just going on. And it all came back down to, I just stopped having fun doing what I was doing. So I think that's a huge factor for sustained success over the long term.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, imagine always, grind can be a weird word, but like if you're in the grind without fun, that sucks. I don't care. Like there's seasons, there's periods, whatever, but like this is like, sleep, work, and your relationships outside, your personal time, relationships. That's where we spend our time, a majority. I mean, so if we're hating what we do, if we're not enjoying it, what the hell are we really doing? It's but I get it. It's also serious, right? For many of us, our entrepreneurship is like our main income. It's provides for our families, our futures, right? Like we can invest into ourselves and our lives. It's our livelihood. So I get how important that is, right? And at the same time, this is where I think environment becomes really important. Back to what are we surrounding ourselves with? Podcasts like yours, content like this, people that are at that level will take like, hey, yeah, we're going to do $7 million this year. We're going to have a good time doing it. We're going to grow our team. Yes, it's going to be, hey, I'm a little worried because I'm making some big investments. I'm doing this and that. but we're doing it. It's going to be a good time, right?
Yep.
Otherwise, chuck it in the fuck it bucket. Okay.
Yep.
Dan,
Exactly.
like, why? Why do it? Let's just have a good time. But this is the thing. Like, again, you have to be really aware. I found myself in those periods of depression and down, slumps, and I isolated. I cut everything off. I cut everyone off, and it was easier, quote unquote, to do that because I didn't have anybody saying, Michael, what's going on, dude? You're fat. You're like, what's going on? Like, you put on a bunch of weight. You're not coming around anymore. Like, I don't see you running your business well. Like, what's going on, right? And so if we don't have that self-awareness, get in the right room. Just get in any room, digital room or otherwise, and get around people that are making those waves in the way that you want it. Go where your desired outcome is normal. And so you can start to self-regulate a little bit, or at least have, maybe some other eyeballs, some accountability that's baked into that. And before you know it, hey, I do want to have fun. And that guy or that gal is having a blast. And it seems like they're doing really well. I'm going to ask some questions. Let me get around that energy. Right. And so I don't know. We could probably unpack that one all day, but enjoy what you're doing. And, I also find that it's like an unconscious permission slip when you're just living, you're just doing some fun stuff. People ask questions, and businesses and relationships and ideas and connections, networking can blossom out of that. It's just like, we can talk about all in a lot of contexts, but when I speak at events, I just love showing up. I'm just a regular dude. I'll wear a black t-shirt, some jeans. Like, I'm in the audience. I'm taking notes. I'm high-fiving people. Like, I'm going to the lunch with them. Nobody knows who I am. Michael Marcial should not register for most people. I'm not a celebrity, right? I'm not that person. And so then when they call me up to speak, usually to keynote the event, they're like, this dude that's been cracking jokes and like taking notes, and he's like in on every speaker. Wait a minute. I wasn't taking notes like that. Maybe I was a little too nervous and I was a little shelled up, and this dude's giving a keynote and he was still sitting in the audience just firing away, asking questions, doing the things. Wait a minute. Maybe there's something to that. And guess who comes and asks the question afterward? Like, what the hell, dude? That was awesome. How do you get on stage like that? How do you grow your business like that? Now we have real conversations, and whether I sell them or not, it's just like, you got to see what's possible and get in the right room, so to speak. It reminds me of that. I guess it's a poem, "The Man in the Arena." Right? You just got to get in. That. Oh, it's a beautiful one. I wish I have it memorized. I don't, but it's essentially saying, hey, when you're in the arena, you're the one with the blood and the dust. You're the one essentially carrying the sword and the shield. That is a very different game than sitting in the bleachers, casting judgment or criticizing the person in the arena. Once you're in, and that's what I feel like what we're doing here, we're in the thing.
Yeah.
We're going to start attracting more of those warrior types. Maybe they are in the bleachers right now. Or maybe they're just outside of the arena and they're looking in a very real way. They're like, shit, that dude's doing it. Maybe I should ask some questions. Maybe I should get closer. Maybe I should send that friend request. Maybe I should follow along. Maybe I should send that DM. I don't know what's going to happen, but maybe we should do it. Success never stops. We talked about that. Like, doesn't matter where you think you are right now. Just keep on keeping on. Get yourself the right people in your life, and you're halfway there.
100%. I have two things. One, it's crazy how many speakers actually just fly in, do their talk, and don't ever like sit down and listen to other speakers. I think that's huge that you don't let your ego like kind of lead that part, because I do feel like a lot of it is an ego thing. Like, oh, I can't learn from any of these people.
Yeah. I'm too busy. I'm too important.
Yep, exactly. So I think that's huge, because that just kind of puts you on a completely other level when you do get up there to speak. Kind of like you said, people start coming up to you. They ask you like, wow, how do you do that? And the second thing is, like, you talked about kind of getting into these bigger rooms of these people that are doing better than you. I know with a lot of newer entrepreneurs, coaches, even closers, like getting in that room is very intimidating to a lot of them. Like, how do you get over that fear and just be able to just push through it and do it anyways?
Yeah, there's so much here, and I'm going to just keep it bite sized like me. I'm going to say this is that nobody that's doing better than you will pull you down. Okay, so if you're worried about the critique or what are people going to say if I'm, I'm not the smartest person in the room, great, because the only people that pull you down are people that are beneath you. Okay, so that's number one. So if there's any of that kind of fear, just understand when you're in a room. Like I think about the gym. When I first started going to the gym, I was terrified. I had the midsection was not looking too great. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to use some of the machines. And I risked it. I was like, okay, let me just go and see what this thing's all about. And I go and I started seeing people that were in shape and what they were doing. And before I knew it, I found myself just walking around watching people and like, oh shit, okay, that's how you use that machine. Okay. And okay, well, great form. Huh. Okay, interesting. And before I knew it, day one, I had way more knowledge, way more insight, way more motivation than I could have ever, outside the arena thinking about it consistently. So again, get in that room. Nobody that is winning at whatever room you're walking into will shit on you for being there. In fact, we see that when I see a new speaker, or I see a new closer, or I see a new entrepreneur, or I see a whatever that's just like wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. Amazing. I'll usually approach that person. I'll usually connect to that person. Like, dude, is this you typically speak at events? This is my first time, man.
That's awesome.
I don't know what's going on. Dude, are you kidding me? This is your first time? Amazing. All right. Do you need anything? No? Okay. You want some feedback? I'll sit in the audience. I'll take some notes. Dude, really? And before you know it, that person is leveled the hell up, like tenfold just by doing the thing. So if we really want, again, let's go back to why we're doing anything that we're doing. If we really want that vision, that thing, get in the room, like make the mistakes. 100 times over, we will learn by doing, not by thinking about doing.
For sure. No, 100%. What do you think, like between last year and this year, what trends do you see happening in the high ticket coaching space that, like, do you see more people going to like low ticket offers, or like what do you see going on with a lot of the people that you've been working with?
Yeah. I'm actually seeing a lot of like the great separation, like the middle ground offers, not picking up steam nearly as well as the higher ticket.
Yep.
And so what I'm seeing is that there's this divide where there are people out there and it's not about having money, by the way. It's not really all that economical. It's more of that people are wanting certainty. Okay.
Yep.
People are wanting certainty. We've invested before, investing now in coaching and courses and information. It's not new anymore. And a lot of people have been burned. Okay. A lot of people have made the $4,000 investment, the $10,000 investment, and they didn't get what they were promised. And it was, it hurt a little bit. Okay. And so with that being said, that separation is like, well, wait a minute. Why is this priced here? And oh my gosh, this is a stacked offer and you get everything that I was missing before. And I see how this is that much more valuable. So we're seeing that separation. Low ticket offers are still a thing. Absolutely. Going high ticket or high volume is what I'm seeing right now. And the ones that are really embracing that, and sure, have a mid-ground kind of ticket, certainly, but we're seeing some of those higher ticket offers selling like hotcakes, and certainly lower ticket, just because that's always going to be a thing. People test me out, or budget-wise, or whatever the case might be.
Yep, I completely agree. I think the people that were selling like the $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 offers, I think people are just getting tired of buying courses for that price, and they want that additional support and everything to go with it. Or they know that there's going to be somebody that's selling the same information for $27 to $97 on the front end. And they're going to go that route with it because that's a lot less to kind of risk out of all the other courses that they bought either haven't gone through, because it's like 3% of people that buy a course ever go through it.
Yeah.
And then the courses that they have bought that have just been trash and didn't really live up to the hype that they thought it was going to be. So yeah, I see that as well.
Yeah, that's a good call out. 100%. You either want the support, you want to go all in and let's freaking go, or I can get that information for $197 versus $997, $29.97, whatever the case might be. So I'm seeing that for sure. I think we'll see that play out through the remainder of this year. And I think we'll start to see some standouts. Even in myself last year, we put together and launched an offer that was kind of our bigger offer. It's a $48,000 a year offer, and it's more on the consulting side where it's more, I don't want to call it fractional because that's not what it is. It's more consulting, where we have a regimen that we go through with our client, where instead of investing $100K, $150K, $250K on one person to come indoors and do their thing, they can just have myself and my team always looking at the important key metrics and flipping those levers. So for me, it's a higher ticket offer, and for my ideal client, it is their low ticket. Yeah, it's like, holy crap, $4,000 a month. Say less, right? So, but again, in context, there's low ticket, high ticket. For me, that's my high ticket, right? 48K, when we're putting it together, I was like, this is crazy value for 48K. It's my high ticket. Oh, holy crap, this is crazy. But at the same time, low ticket for the right client. So, but yeah, that separation is happening right now.
Totally agree. What would you say is next for you in High Ticket Accelerator, and like, what's the big vision you're working towards right now for the rest of the year?
Yeah, great question. Big picture. I want to open my my own bandwidth. That's really what's next for me, and what that looks like is, I have an awesome team. They're incredible. Building a team is actually relatively new for me over the last couple of years, in just opening up my own bottlenecks a little bit more and more. So I have that piece now figured out, and it's really now we've set the foundation to be able to serve more of those clients, and really in that separation kind of concept. We launched that higher ticket offer, which is amazing. Love it. It really gets my hands into the nerdy stuff that I like to look at and really serve my client at a high level. And then we're also, continuing to build out our lower ticket, which I'm super, super looking forward to as well. We're just kind of, again, just expanding a little bit more this year. So nothing too crazy. Again, keeping it simple. We're just going to keep expanding what we have right now.
No, I love that. Is the low ticket the one that you guys, I believe you started on, was it January 2nd?
Oh yeah. Well, we have a couple other, smaller tickets for sure. Our
Okay.
flagship lower ticket offer is $3,800. And so that's kind of our low ticket, if you will. And so in context that either, we either train a closer, or we're starting to build a closing team for our coach clients.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. If someone's
cool.
listening and is serious about, scaling their business, working with you, where can they find more information about you? And then I'll put the links down in the comment section as well, or the description.
No, awesome. I love that. Yeah, I'll send all the links and all the fun stuff. We have our landing page has some information on it. And truthfully, you can book a call through there. You can talk with us and stuff like that. More times than not, if somebody heard me on your show and they're like, oof, we need to talk. We actually have a really cool system through my DMs, whether you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. So send a friend request or a follow, and then shoot an inbox or a DM. And that's going to be the best way, because I believe in relationship building and connecting with people that, especially that we might work with. Don't go through and fill out a form. And it is very impersonal for us. I want to know exactly who you are and what your business is all about, what you're all about before we ever even consider jumping on a call. That saves everyone's time, but we actually get to connect. I love connecting with people for real. So find me on the socials. That would be the easiest. And yes, check out the website, all the nerdy stuff, but all the accolades and all the stuff is cool, I think, to see, but shoot me a DM. Let's connect for real.
And he does respond as well.
Yeah.
That's how
That's how we landed here.
If you could teach just one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
My goodness. How dare you? What a question. Future guests on your show, they better come correct. I'm going to tell you, okay? This was phenomenal. A great question. I would say if I could teach or impart something, it would be transparency. Transparency. Universal, in my personal life, relationships, business dealings, just being transparent. Hey, if I'm not the best fit for you, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna tell you. And if and in personal story, like even in my personal relationship with my girlfriend, when we started dating, I was like, hey, this was a phenomenal date one. I want to see you again for sure. And truth be told, like, I want to figure this out. Like, is this a longer term thing? Is it not? And as we progressed through our relationship, just being transparent, and she loved that. And we got to actually connect and see what works and maybe dig into some things that maybe didn't work or questionable or, all right, it's transparency. I'm going to stop it there. I think we get the idea, but just walk through life and business clean, and you'll connect with way more of the opportunities you're looking for. You're not putting up a boundary that says no all the time. It's just filtering in the right yeses.
No, I think that's huge. Being transparent in sales and your marketing and literally
100%.
everything, because once you stop being transparent, you set crazy expectations. People feel like that you didn't meet them, and you end up bringing on the wrong clients, and everything just kind of spirals out of control.
Yeah. Just transparency. That's what I would do. Just little regular dude me. I would look at transparency. If I could download that into everybody, that'd be a wild experience. Just everybody's just open and transparent about what's real. Holy moly! Imagine that.
There was a movie. I can't remember the name of it, but in the movie you couldn't lie. And then there was that one guy that
was it Liar Liar?
What was that?
Liar Liar with Jim Carrey?
No.
It's
got the guy from Shaun of the Dead, I believe. And
literally, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you couldn't lie. And then he found out that he could lie, so he just started lying all over the place and then getting everything that he wanted. And then they found out he lied, and they ostracized him. But I know we're getting to the end, and I always love to end with this question. If you could fast forward to the end of your life, if you could leave one final message for everybody that's kind of followed your journey, what would it be?
Brilliant question. If I could fast forward to the end and just and leave that one message to be followed or to be looked at, it would be this message. And I'll just say it how it is in my brain. Understand that you're here for a reason and a purpose. Figure that out, and the rest takes care of itself.
Love it. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate you spending the hour with me, and it's been a great conversation.
Thanks for having me. Seriously.
I look forward to continuing to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely.